Sorry about that. Just had to connect to the Wi-Fi there. All right. Just like the title says, this video is just going to be me going through my current political philosophy based on this admittedly very flawed tool called the political compass test. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with it. I will just go ahead and share this. Wonderful. Oh, I wonder who that is. Oh well. Figure that out later. Oh wait, I should put the chat on live chat. Cool. For whatever that does. The political compass test. Question 1. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. This is a good example of why tests like these are fundamentally flawed instruments, because already on the very first question, it's sort of a Rorschach test of a question in and of itself. It's not necessarily a zero-sum game between the interests of humanity and the interests of transnational corporations. However, that said, I'm going to say I agree with that. I would always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Trying to decide whether I disagree with that or strongly disagree with that. I'll say strongly disagree. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I disagree with that. I guess I don't strongly disagree with that, but I do disagree with that. I think everyone should be proud of where they come from. I think pride is necessary for normal people to stay sane. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Well, this is an interesting question. I mean, I think that's true about every race. So, agree? Yeah, I'll say agree. Alright. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yes. Do I agree with that, or do I strongly agree with that? Just agree. I'll say just agree. CZB stands for Christopher Zamonska Blake, which is my name. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I'll agree with that. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I'm going to say strongly disagree. Strongly disagree with that because I strongly disagree with that because information and entertainment need to be fused in order to evolve into more advanced versions of themselves. So, and we're seeing that happen as we speak. I mean, this video is a version of that exact evolution. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Hmm. I'm going to disagree with that. And I think I disagree with that because I'm conservative. But I'm not 100% sure. It's just a feeling. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. This is a nice question. Yes. Strongly agree. I'm conservative. I think that's the conservative position. The internet could feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. That is true, so I will agree. I don't strongly agree, but I don't disagree, so I agree. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good idea. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good idea. I agree with that, but not for the reasons that I agree with that, but not for the reasons that I think a liberal would agree with that. So I'm a conservative, and I agree with the concept of from each according to his ability to each according to his need in a very theoretical sense. In the sense that I think people have a personal responsibility to produce the things that they need or find them. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly disagree. I'm conservative. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Strongly disagree. It is regrettable. The peanut gallery is amusing tonight. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. What a ridiculous question. Very few people in society contribute more than the people who manipulate money. Strongly disagree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Agree. I agree with that. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Disagree. I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative. The rich are too highly taxed. You know what? That's probably true. I'll agree with that. I am a conservative after all. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly agree. Of course. It's like 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's basic. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yeah, I agree. Yes, they should penalize businesses that mislead the public. It's basically fraud. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Well, this is another one of those Rorschach test questions almost. In different contexts, I could agree or disagree with this, but I'll just say see, genuine is a Weasley word. They put genuine in there on purpose to make it into a Rorschach test question. Genuine free market. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I'll just say I agree with that. The freer the market, the freer the people. Of course not. Look at China. Strongly disagree. Well, somewhat agree. I mean, there is a lot of stuff you can do in China that you can't do here. So, I'll just disagree. Abortion. Abortion. Oh God, this is gonna be a this is gonna be a train wreck. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Huh. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. You know what? Woman's life is not threatened. Yes, should be illegal. Should be illegal because the point of making things illegal is as a deterrent. I wouldn't I wouldn't be too authoritarian about it, but you got to do something. The thing is, that's kind of a Weasley question too, because kind of a Weasley question too, because abortion, well, pregnancy itself is considered a medical emergency. I mean, it it inherently carries a risk to the life of the mother to be pregnant. But women are supposed to welcome that risk by and large. Um, which is why I agree that abortion should generally be illegal, because it shouldn't be. It should be something to be avoided. People should be much more careful than they currently are with sex in general. Um, we have to educate them somehow. So, doing something is better than doing nothing. All authority, really though, people need to be educated by their parents. Problem is, people don't parent. People don't even try to parent for the most part. All authority should be questioned. Hmm. I will agree with that statement, but not strongly agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Hmm. This is a complex question. I do believe in retribution. I do believe in retribution, but I don't believe in perfectly equal retribution. Although I do believe in equivalent exchange. So I'll say I agree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Okay, now, I understand there are deeper implications to this question, but the question they specifically asked me was about theaters and museums. If they had said libraries, I might feel a different way about it, but they said theaters and museums. And I agree. I agree that, well, museums, I don't know. Yeah, but the internet, yes, I agree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. We need to educate. If people don't care, we need to get them to care. That's what advertising is for. Right, Alex? Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Hmm. Disagree. I disagree with that. It's important to teach them when they're young the, what it feels like to need to be somewhere at a certain time in a certain place. Because when you're an adult, you will certainly have to do those things. And if you don't have experience handling yourself in situations like that, um, you'll be sorry for it. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Hmm. I disagree with this. I disagree with this because I enjoy learning about other cultures and other types of people. I enjoy it. And I think it's good for people. However, I do believe that you need to maintain some level of homogeneity in each disparate culture. or tribe of humanity, even as you let them intermingle as they want to as well. Um, the fact of the matter is that they don't have a natural inclination to just end limitlessly commingle with one another. They do have some internal cohesion, or they tend to. And I think it would be perfectly sane to structure our societies in such a way that each of them exists in perpetuity into the future as a separate entity from the others, and there's some mathematically feasible level of commingling that we can allow as well. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Um, I disagree with this. Spanking children is basically assault. Um, but there's a point to be made here where the reason I'm not strongly disagreeing with this is because there is a sort of play fighting that you do with your kid that where you don't hurt them, but you might cause them slight discomfort on purpose, very slight discomfort, such as prodding or poking them. Uh, if they're if you are aware that they're intentionally doing something that they know they shouldn't be doing, like being overly aggressive towards someone or something like that. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yes, of course, I agree. I almost strongly agree, but I think I'll just agree with that. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Yes, I strongly agree. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Yes, I think I agree with that. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. If individual people want to go into a higher level of education because they have a passion for a certain type of knowledge or a certain type of career, then that should be encouraged as well. But I would say that the prime function of schooling in general should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. There's a certain level of intellectual waste that goes on in our current educational system that's almost splendidly horrific. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Oh boy. I disagree with that. I absolutely disagree with that. But I'm going to say I disagree with that rather than I strongly disagree with that because you could argue that being very unattractive is an inheritable disability. And um, I don't think it's illegitimate for people to avoid mating with that person of their own volition. So that's that's the gray area of that one as far as I'm concerned. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Hmm. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. The most important thing for children to learn is, see, this is another Rorschach test question. This is why this test is a fundamentally broken tool, because for some for some people it's right to disagree with this, and for some people it's right to agree with this. Quote, the most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Now, there's another very important thing that children need to learn, as well as discipline. Potentially more, depending on what type of kid we're talking about. And that thing is their imagination. They need to understand how important it is and how much potential they have to dream a future for themselves. The only way to live out the dreams that everyone fantasizes about is to believe in the first place that you're capable of doing it. Everyone who has studied it agrees with that. So for my sake, I disagree with it for the reason that I am a naturally uh, very disciplined and very imaginative person. I have both of those instincts very strongly within me. And so, of the two of them, I would say I value my imagination more highly because I dream the largest dreams of anyone that I know. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. So that's almost a Rorschach test question. And it's kind of annoying as well. I disagree with this. Different cultures, some different cultures, sometimes the difference is one is civilized and one is savage. And anyway, savagery is unfairly maligned in many cases. Not totally, just in many cases. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Absolutely. How could you possibly how could you possibly disagree with this statement? Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I mean, the only sense in which I could possibly disagree with this statement is that they should still be have the expectation that if they change their mind about wanting to work, that there would be some form of employment available to them when they change their mind, when they commit to actually going to work. But other than that, it's a hard, strong disagree for me. Right. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Hmm. This is another Rorschach test question. Certain types of people will answer it different kinds of ways. What I'm trying to say is there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer to this question. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. For myself, I disagree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think that's true. Fully integrated? It depends on your definition of fully integrated, I suppose. But if anyone feels like it's not true, that you can't be fully integrated, or if you want to tell me what you think fully integrated means, and then tell me why you think they can't, be my guest. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. Um, Disagree. Always. No, definitely not always. It's a, that's a hard, soft disagree from me. I mean, corporations are the vehicles that are that the human race must ride into the future if we have any hope, any real hope of solving the problems in our societies and surviving in perpetuity into the future. We must utilize the power of the corporation in order to make that happen, and we have to revolutionize it. You know that, but these things are already taking place every day as we live out our lives, going and as we transfer larger and larger portions of our life into the digital space. Um, we still have only seen the tip of the iceberg. I promise. One day, a vast majority of people's lives will take place in the digital atmosphere. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I strongly disagree with this. I disagree with this because I think it's legitimate for a government to do propaganda if they're honest that it's propaganda, because propaganda is not inherently evil. And the worst part about it is the fact that I mean, you don't necessarily even need to lie about propaganda, right? If it's moral propaganda, if you really believe in what you're saying to the public, it's okay that it's propaganda. We will see the effects of it, and we will judge you accordingly. That is all. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Civil liberties being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. I wonder if that's true. I mean, terrorism is a bad problem. But I agree. I would rather curtail other people's liberties than my own. And that is an option that's on the table. Although you can't possibly stop everyone, and there's lots of people that can spring up from within. But still, oh well, I mean, alright, I'm gonna say disagree, but I hate having to say disagree. Thanks, Islam. Alright. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I mean, that's true. That's objectively true. And they phrased it in a very narrow way, so it's not necessarily worth my time to critique what could be wrong with agreeing with that statement. It obviously doesn't imply general agreement with anyone else on the world who would also happen to agree with that statement. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Do I disagree with this, or do I strongly disagree with this? I strongly disagree with this. Thank you, George Orwell. I strongly disagree. The government will spy on you, and they will take it too far, eventually. Or at least they'll always try to. It's a never-ending war that we have to fight, of self-governance. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. I agree with that. Agree with that statement fundamentally. I think probably because I'm a conservative. But I don't know. I could be swayed on that point. But I agree with this because I believe in the power of deterrence. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. That's true. I'm not going to strongly agree with that because I'm not like a Nazi, but that is true. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Abstract. This is another Rorschach test question. Because if it's art, by definition, it represents something. So if you say abstract art, that doesn't represent anything. It's just, there are so many implications baked into the cake of that question itself. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. If someone made it, it represented something to them. And therefore it is art. So I disagree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I disagree. Punishment is not more important than rehabilitation. Yeah, punishment is not more important than rehabilitation. This is one of those areas where corporations need to be involved in helping the community. It's not something for the government to do, and it's not something families necessarily are fully capable of handling by themselves. Primarily, it's their responsibility, but they need help. Let's be honest, they need help. So that this is something I believe our culture needs to undergo a fundamental paradigm shift. The leaders of companies, yeah, to be quite honest, they need to come up with inventive solutions and artful compromises with poor people, um, to make their lives better. Uh, it, we we have we have to come together as a human race and get certain things done, uh, in order to maximize our potentials. Uh, we need every ounce of collective growth and strength that we can muster up, if we're going to have any hope of surviving uh, into the distant future. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. The real question here is do you believe that anyone can be so far gone that they're too far gone? Like Kyle Kalinske would say, too far gone. I bet he would say, I'm too far gone. Anyway, it is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. If I disagree with that, then I would be disagreeing with my previous stance or I would be implicitly disagreeing with my previous stance that the death penalty should be on the table for some crimes. So, it's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Yes. Yes. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals because, in some cases, a person was simply born as an extremely sadistic person. And so, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to that person? Lobotomize them? Literally change who they are? Isn't that almost worse than killing them? I mean, it doesn't seem better. To me, it does not seem better to fundamentally change who they were if they wanted to be who they were. If they like being, let's say, a serial mass murderer, rapist, whatever, and being who that is, and they're, you know, and they understand the implications, then yes, I think in some cases it's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate those people. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Wow. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I disagree with that. I don't strongly disagree with that. The reason I don't strongly disagree is because The business person and the manufacturer are vitally important to survival itself. There is no way to survive without doing business, period. However, there is no way to be happy without art. Every form of beauty is a form of art. Everything you enjoy doing is derived from the realm of artistry. So, I mean, without one we die, but without the other, we have no reason to exist. You can't you can't make the claim that one is more important than the other. That's my point. That's why I disagree. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I agree with that. Hashtag not all. Different things for different people. I certainly wouldn't stop any woman from spending her time however she chooses to. But I personally, my personal belief is that children need their mothers. It's just how I feel about it. I think they need their fathers too. But I think they need someone to be with them more. So, but siblings can also do that job eventually. It's not like being a mother is a life sentence or something. Although in a very narrow context it is. But being a father is a life sentence in that same regard. And personally speaking, I welcome the odyssey that will be. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Let me read that again. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Unethically exploiting. I'll agree with that only because we do need a paradigm shift in the culture of the leaders of corporations. The tool that is corporation must be harnessed in a more effective way. We need a change in the culture. The good news is it's happening. I'm very optimistic about many things. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I agree with that. Yeah, it's generally true. Making peace with the establishment. I mean, I think I strongly agree with that. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Yes, if you want to be mature, at a minimum, do a peaceful hostile takeover politically, or of whatever establishment that is in question. This is at a minimum. You should take it over for yourself, figure out a way to convert it to your ideals, and then you will have made peace with the establishment because they bowed down to you. That's at a minimum. But everyone needs to make peace with the establishment as an important aspect of their maturity. So I strongly agree with this. Astrology accurately explains many things. I'm gonna disagree with that. I'll agree with that. I think astrology gets a bad rap. You cannot be moral without being religious, lol. Now, this is a great question. This is a super good question. This is true. It's true that you cannot be moral without being religious. It hinges on what your understanding of religion is. Most people disagree with me about the definition of religion, but they disagree with me because they haven't thought about the definition of religion sufficiently. Any belief system constitutes a religion. Or if you disagree with that, why do you disagree with that? In what way is another belief system other than the ones that we generally establish to be religions and name as religions? In what way is a political philosophy not a religious belief, set of beliefs, institution, etc.? How is the Make America Great Again movement not religious? In a very fundamental, specific, definitional way, how is it not a religious movement? How was the Hillary Clinton campaign of 2016 not a religious movement? You know, socialism, capitalism, these things are religions. You cannot be moral without being religious. It's funny because it seems absurd on its face, but it's actually true. Strongly agree. You have to believe in something. If you don't stand for something, you'll go for anything. Right? Right, Miss Cram? Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I agree, yes. That's what I'm talking about. Corporations need to change. Strongly agree. I strongly agree. Some people are naturally unlucky. I agree with that statement. I strongly agree with that statement. God, strongly agree with that statement. Some people are extremely, extremely unlucky, naturally, just by their birth, their family, etc. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. I disagree. I disagree because it's the family's job, not the school's job. Page 6 of 6. Finally, we're almost through this. It says, finally, a look at sex. Oh, brother, this is going to be something. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. Same sex, and don't give me any BS about like some alternative version of what marriage means. Marriage is what it's traditionally defined to be. Sex outside marriage is not generally immoral. It can be immoral. It often is immoral. But it isn't generally. It isn't immoral by definition. Of course not. That's absurd. How would it be? The important thing to have is a treasured bond with someone. In other words, you should love someone before you have sex with them. That's all. And that's perfectly enough to preserve the chastity of quite honestly, every single person on the earth, if that's how they lived their lives. Marriage is another level entirely. And it's unreasonably conservative to say that it's immoral to have sex outside of marriage in general. A same sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Hmm. While not being versed in any of the relevant statistics on this topic, just out of my general philosophy of morality, I would agree with this statement because they said stable and loving. So, lots of statistics that people might be able to show me probably wouldn't indicate that someone with a stable and loving relationship shouldn't be able to adopt a child. It's 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 almost impossible to argue that anyone that's in a stable and loving relationship should be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. It's absurd on its face, full stop. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Should be legal. Isn't it legal? Is it not legal? Yes, it should be legal. I agree. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. I strongly agree with this. And it's it's a if anyone has ever been in an argument like just a regular run of the mill argument with their significant other and it just got too loud for your neighbors, so they called the police on you. It's incredibly infuriating and frustrating and somewhat humiliating and just a waste of time in general for the most part in my experience. So you know that's just my subjective experience. Take it with a grain of salt. No one can feel naturally homosexual. All right, well, first of all, it's different for men versus for women. So, no one, this question is already just too generalized. Secondly, no one can feel naturally homosexual. I'm certain that certain people feel naturally homosexual. But I'm not going to strongly disagree with this. I'm just going to disagree with it because I'm also under the impression that some people who act homosexual in a homosexual nature are what I'm the underlying belief that I have that I'm trying to express is that homosexuality is to some degree, to some meaningful degree, a choice that you can make. As a man, I could choose to be gay, right? I could choose to be that thing by doing the associated lifestyle. But I don't want to do that, which is why I don't. I am attracted to women. It's just how I'm built. I, but I do believe that some people are inherently attracted. I do believe some men are inherently attracted to men. Uh, it, these beliefs, while they contradict at some level, they're not wholly contradictory beliefs. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I disagree. I think sex education in general is good, and openness about sex fosters sex education, so all right, let's see where I stand. Blah, blah, blah. They explain all the things. Oh, this is interesting. All right. Let's show everyone. Just for fun, let's see here. Does everyone see? We have Stalin, Hitler, Thatcher, Friedman, and Gandhi. All right. Let's just keep watching here. Watch along with me. Your political compass. Economic left, right, 1.5. Social libertarian, authoritarian, negative 0.15. This is the most centrist political test I've ever taken in my life. That's amazing. But it makes sense to me. It reflects the kinds of thoughts that I've been having lately. I've been thinking very centristy thoughts. Except my centrism is special. My centrism involves giving both sides what they want rather than both sides half of what they want. If that makes sense. You know, wherever possible. Of course, sometimes it wouldn't be possible. All right, well, this was very informative, I'm sure, and I hope somewhat entertaining. And I am going to go ahead and end it here. Good night, everybody.